So I don't know if you guys have noticed as much as I have, or some of us on Saturday Night Hypnosis, we've noticed that the talk about Rings of Power Season 2 has been very, very vocal recently. I don't really know if this is purposeful. I think that, and Dragon Slayer brought this up to me in a chat once, where he says that he thinks that this has to do with Amazon purposefully leaking this information to these people and then having them spread it out as what's called a leak. But really, it's not a leak. It's the studio wanting this information out there to try to get people hyped. And if they say it's a leak, then it will get people more hyped than it would normally have been if they would have just did it themselves. I really do believe that. I think that they are trying to start up the hype train for season 2 of the Rings of Power, and they're going to start early. And I think the reason why they're starting early is because Warner Brothers has unfortunately forced their hands with the announcement of their movie. But we have an article from Den of Geek, and it says the Rings of Power Season 2 set photos tease classic Lord of the Rings character. With production underway for the Rings of Power Season 2, we have our first look at some new Lord of the Rings set photos. Now again, I don't know if anybody who's actually excited for the Rings of Power Season 2, other than YouTubers who are going to make so much money and get so many views and so many subscribers from the absolute chaos that's about to ensue from this Season 2. But aside from us, I really don't know of anybody who's excited for this absolutely horrific show and this bastardization of Tolkien's work. I mean, it's something that we've talked about multiple times on this channel, and it's what gave me my initial subscriber boost. But let's talk about it. So it says, despite Warner Brothers hogging the news cycle as it pertains to Lord of the Rings universe, production on the second season of Amazon's The Rings of Power is well underway. In fact, Season 2 has been filming for months at this point and is reportedly aiming for a 2024 release date. The Rings of Power Season 2 will, of course, pick up where the finale left off. Sauron has arrived in Mordor, and trouble is brewing in Numenor, while the Stranger and Nori are off to ruin, and the Balrog has awakened in the depths of Moria. Oh, and Celebrimbor has decided to accessorize and create the 3 Rings of Power for the elves, which will soon mean rings for the dwarves and men as well. But again, the funny thing is, the entire reason why people hate this show is because it's a bastardization of Tolkien's work. The storyline makes absolutely no sense. It's completely swapped with God knows how many different portions in the timeline. And not only that, the entire creation of the Rings of Power, the whole point of the entire show, right? The show is called Rings of Power, right? So the entire point of the fucking show, you changed up the entire way that the Rings of Power were forged. This is not how they were forged. This is not even in the same timeline that they were forged. The Elven Rings were forged last, and you made them first in this TV show. I mean, I just... Again, this is something that we've been talking about often. I hate it. You hate it. We all hate it. And at the end of the day, they're just going to try to keep going with it because they have to double down. Amazon cannot admit that this show is a failure. They've invested so much money into the IP that if they give up now and they admit failure, it's all going to be for naught. It says, with all the rings being forged, it's no surprise Season 2 will spend a bit of more time in the Elven Kingdom of Eregion, where certainly repercussions will be felt once Sauron unleashes the rest of his plan to control Middle-earth. Celebrimbor, Gil-galad, Elrond, and Galadriel will be feeling a bit guilty about their part in the whole ring fiasco once Sauron has given 7 to the dwarves and 9 to men, while also secretly forging the One Ring in Mount Doom. Galadriel, in particular, may feel a bit guilty about not stopping the creation of the Elven Rings once she has learned of Halbrand's true identity. Yeah, well, they should all honestly feel guilty for even being part of this show. So I think they should they should feel guilty for having us have to watch Galadriel and her nonstop same emotion for every single thing that she's feeling. If she's angry, she's got the same face. If she's happy, she's got the same face. God knows we had to see that terrible smile that she gave us on the horseback. I mean, it was just something that it's only a face a mother could love, really, at the end of the day. It says set photos leaked from the sets at Bray Studios in Berkshire in the UK confirmed that more elven sets are indeed on the menu for Season 2, with one location even teasing a reference to one of the most important characters in J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium. If you zoom in closely on the set photos below, you can see a statue that seems to commemorate a former king of the Noldor, the craftsman Feanor, the elf who crafted the Silmarils. The hammer the statue holds in one hand, while surrounded by 3 gems, the exact number of Silmarils are a dead giveaway. Again, these are supposedly drone shots that were taken, and I just don't believe it. I don't believe that these were actually drone shots that weren't taken by the studio themselves. They definitely gave this information to the Den of Geek or whoever was the first to report on this, and they're doing it because they're trying to build hype for it. They're trying to build hype for the show, and this is the statue that they're referencing. And again, none of this shit matters. I don't care how deep you get into the story regarding Feanor and the Silmarils and all that. None of it matters. You completely changed the entire story that was expected from the books. You couldn't even adapt it slightly. It's insane. And the reason why is because you didn't have most of the rights necessary to adapt it. So we all knew it was going to be trash. We all knew you were going to change up the entire storyline to fit whatever narrative you were trying to tell. But the thing is, it's not even a good narrative. It's not even interesting. Nobody cares. The entire first season was literally some of the most boring TV we've had the displeasure to watch. And even Velma was more entertaining than The Rings of Power, truthfully. It says, while Amazon can't actually adapt the material from the Silmarillion, oh, good, at least they admit it, or Unfinished Tales, as the studio only has the rights to the Lord of the Rings dependencies, The Rings of Power Season 1 alluded to many of the events chronicled in Tolkien's histories of the First Age. The series opened with a prologue covering the true trees of Valinor and the War of Wrath against Morgoth, while later episodes alluded to the fall of Gondolin and Glorfindel, as well as the sinking of Beleriand. The Silmarils themselves have been referenced, and with Celebrimbor being a descendant of the House of Feanor, it would make sense for his realm to have a monument to the first of his house. Celebrimbor even uses Feanor's legendary hammer in Season 1. Oh, that's so exciting! Except he used that hammer to forge rings in a method of which did not happen in the books whatsoever. You changed the fundamental crafting of the Rings of Power. The story, it's the story that literally leads the rest of the story. You changed the entire beginning of the story. There is no reason to expect, there is no reason to believe that you will be canonical in the slightest. And the funny thing is, they're doing it again. They're trying to say, oh, the Rings of Power is going to be canonical more so in Season 2 than it was in Season 1. How so? How can that be? You changed the entire forging of the rings. There's no way that afterwards you can suddenly be canonical. It's impossible. Forget all the other travesties that you did in the first season, which there were plenty. You had completely changed the forging of the rings. That in and of itself, it's impossible to follow up with. So there's no way in hell that you're going to possibly be a canonical story. And I wish you would just come out and say so. You should have just led with that. This is a retelling. This is like something that, it might be inspired by very lightly, just in name, just in setting, but really the entire story is made up. If you would have just been honest with it from the start, I don't think people would have hated you as much for it. But the fact that you tried to come out as something super canonical, super to the books, and you even said, again, the famous line, they went back to the books, back to the books, back to the books, right? They said that all the time. They went back to the books to see what they were going to ignore. That's basically what they did. It says some of the internet have speculated that the existence of the monument, as well as the other allusions to the characters, could mean that a Feanor flashback is on the way for the second season. But again, that's a tricky situation in terms of the rights to adapt the First Age material. At the moment, those rights don't even live within Bracer Group, but with the Tolkien estate itself. The arrival of Feanor on the series will ultimately depend on whether Amazon can get special permission from the estate. For now, we're just going to assume this monument exists as a fun Easter egg for Tolkien fans and as a deft bit of world building. Again, I have no faith in this second season. I can almost guarantee you with 100% certainty that it's going to be trash of the trash. This is what started a lot of the trash regarding TV, and we had so much follow-up with it. We had Rings of Power, we had The Witcher Blood Origin, we had Velma, and we're going to have so much more to completely make fun of and mock. But The Rings of Power holds a special place in my heart because it's based off of Tolkien's work, who I'm a huge fan of, and a lot of you guys are huge fans of. And I never saw an IP defended like Tolkien's work up until The Rings of Power. Tolkien's work is heavily respected throughout the entire planet for something that these people try to say wasn't accessible up until they made it, which I think is hilarious, by the way. They literally tried to say, oh, it wasn't that accessible before, but now that we have diverse people in here, now it's an accessible story. Nonsense. Tolkien's work is literally one of the most printed books in the entire world, up until next to the Bible. And for you to say that it's not an accessible story was one of the most insulting things I think anybody could say about J.R.R. Tolkien's work. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.